I'm now going to continue my video series on memory with a story that I found in the April 1996 edition of the Reader's Digest. And the title of this story is The Boy Who Talked with Dolphins. Why am I doing this? Think about this for just a second. What if you were at a party, whether it be a birthday party or some other party that you are at? You want to socialize, right? Well, if you can remember many of the details of this story, then when you tell this story to others, they will pay closer attention to what you have to say. They will think to themselves, wow, what an intellectual this guy is. And you may make new friends. And maybe it will give you an opportunity at a job. Think about that. People get impressed. They tell you about jobs that you've never heard of before. There you go, you get your employment. Remember, the smarter you sound, the more likely you are to get the job. Okay, let's go through some of the details of this story. And as you can see here, I have notes, so let's just go through this. Now then, this story takes place in Los Angeles. It actually takes place north of Los Angeles, where they have a Six Flags. Okay? Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to picture Six Flags in your head. If you've ever been there, picture Six Flags in your head. If not, look it up. Google it on Google and you can find it. Alright? Now, imagine that there are really Six Flags. 3 of them have angels printed on them. 3 of them have dolphins printed on them. Think about that. Now, we'll get to the names of those 3 particular dolphins later on in this video. Okay? Now, how are we going to remember the name of, let me get it here, and I believe it's Jeff Siegel. That's the name. Okay, we're going to remember Jeff Siegel. How are we going to remember that? We are going to picture in our heads a seagull. You know, the bird, the seagull. And we're going to picture it flying at the speeds similar to that of a supersonic jet. So you've got Jet Siegel, therefore you're going to remember that. Now, this guy's mother happens to be Bonnie Siegel. You're going to have to remember that as well. So, we have 2 seagulls, one that's flying at supersonic jet speeds, and the other one following behind wearing a bonnet. Hence, Bonnie Siegel. Bonnie Siegel. Get it? Okay. Now, think about this. We have a seagull. It's flying as fast as any jet you've ever seen, and it's hearing impaired. That's another detail in the story. So that's how you're going to remember that one. Now, this particular seagull that's flying faster than a jet, or as fast as a jet, and has a hearing impairment, is also wearing a policeman's hat. And you'll know why when you read the story. Okay. Now, this particular seagull is being soaked with a torrent of rain. Why do you ask? Read the story. Okay. Now, as Jeff is growing up from a kid, okay, he's starting to grow up, in the 4th grade, he finds himself in the Dolphin Marines. Okay, so imagine a 4th grade Dolphin Marines. There you go. Okay. Now, Jeff was tested at the Swiss Cheese Center. You say, wait a minute, that's not exactly what the story says, But if you can picture Swiss cheese, and you can picture him being educated in Swiss cheese, you can then imagine the detail in the story. Getting the picture? Okay. Now, what about the dolphin named Grid-Eye? That's right, there was a dolphin in the story named Grid-Eye. How are you going to remember that? Well, you're going to tape graph paper to the dolphin's eyes. There you go. Okay. Now then, how are you going to remember Sharky the dolphin? Well, you're going to picture Sharky the dolphin with a shark fin on his back. Okay. Now, this particular dolphin also has a rope tied around its tail. Why? Because it likes to play tug of war. There you go. Now, how are you going to remember the name Suzanne Fortier? Okay, you're going to imagine a young lady, her name is Suzanne, and she is locked up in a fort. And that's how you're going to remember her name too. Okay? Now, there are 3 dolphins in the dolphin tank at Six Flags in the story. They all have names. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to imagine that all 3 of these dolphins are anorexic. That's very important to the story. You'll find that out when you read it. Okay? Now, we are going to have a torn cake, okay, because torn is the representation of one name, and cake is the representation of another name. Okay, remember these 3 dolphins had 3 different names. One was named Torn, one was named Cake, and one was named Wall. So we're going to imagine a torn cake in the wall. And you say, well, that's not their exact names. That's right, that's not their exact names. But if you can imagine a torn cake in the wall of Six Flags, you'll remember all 3 of the dolphins' names. There you go. Okay. Now, we have a farm. It's growing berries, but it's also growing rope knots. And that's also very important to the story. Now, that's quite a few details within the story. But here's my question. The story goes on past what I just illustrated to you. How are you going to remember the rest of the details of that story? Well, I'm going to leave that as a challenge to you. I want you in the comments below to tell me how you're going to remember the details of the rest of the story. And you'll catch on as you read it. Remember, use your speed reading skills to actually read the story, and then use the memory skills that I have presented in this video to remember the details of the story. You should be able to retain 80% of the details of the story because of what I have presented here in this particular video. Use your imagination. Picture all this stuff in your head. It works. Trust me on this. All right. I will tell you more in a future video, so I would like for you to stay tuned.